Hey guys, just making sure I'm all comfortable. Let's get this show on the road. So, here we go guys. Hopefully this is decent. Whole setup is a bit of a malarkey. Did some cleaning and tidying up, but there we go. Got a timer set up to keep a track on 30 minutes, mostly for the camera and how long I'm taking as well. And I've got notes. Okay, so this will be essentially maybe my first episode of this type of podcast, just a solo podcast by myself, just talking to the camera by myself, sadly. So this will be on my personal channel now. Sorry for taking a while for any subscribers or viewers to this channel. I haven't posted anything in a very long time. I promised myself originally that I wasn't going to neglect this channel. Ended up doing that, and I'm not proud of that. Sadly, just via motivation, and I think that's probably the crux of it as well. I've not made any movement with my Etsy store and haven't posted anything, but this coming August, depending when this video goes live, my goal for this month with my Etsy store is to make one listing, just the one, because it is a very timely thing to do and I'd rather just do it the first go so I don't have to go back in and constantly tweak it. Let me get it right once. If I need to spend a couple of weeks just tweaking it here and there with the time I have, I will do that. So I will also use this channel. I know it's a travel photography vlog channel, which is and tracking my progress on my Etsy store. So I also want to track a bit of progress, personal progress, when it comes to learning German and the methods I will use to accomplish that and the tools to sort of aid and possibly showcase that, because either I have a iPad, let me grab that, with the Logitech Crayon. This is not the Apple Pencil, but it's a similar thing, but not as capable as an Apple Pencil, but it's vastly cheaper and it's official. It's actually Apple licensed, unlike the third parties that you see. But though I have Procreate and to draw on and just have a bit of fun, my primary reason for getting this iPad was actually to jot down notes and take it with me and become more organized, including making these videos and planning my life out. But I'm also going to use it as a learning tool to jot down notes, to use programs like Duolingo and language apps to learn German, and also assist with me to be learning more IT. I'm taking an IT course so that I can be qualified in something a bit different, because I'm looking to move to Germany, to move with my partner over there, so that we can live a life in Germany and see how that entailed, which will, if I'm completely honest, will absolutely open up my travel opportunities, my photo opportunities, and everything that goes with it, because it's different, bigger country, more accessible places to go and visit, and I think that's a big motivational factor to me, not just to move there, but to sort of move my channel with what I want to accomplish. Because being in the UK, it's a bit difficult to do that. If I look back and forth, because I'm checking my notes on my laptop, so apologies for that. I'm trying to do this with as little takes as possible. Oh, of course, one of the things I promised to do in this channel was to publish my travel videos either in vlog formats or whatever footage I have and posted it onto the channel, like my Japan trip, my Korea trip, and also my Vienna trip as well. They need to be posted up, and they've yet to be edited, sadly. But my goal is to post the Japan trip before November, and so I can focus on the other videos going after, because these take a while to do. So that's my goal with the Japan trip. So because I still need to fit in my learning into all of this as well, and I still work 9 till 5. Which also means I've not really gone out to take new photos. I've not added anything to my portfolio to make this all, which kind of a boon, because it means I can gradually start posting up more stuff to Etsy for my current full portfolio. So trying to do the edits, well, yeah, but it also means I haven't made any content for said type of videos either, so it's a bit of a catch-22. Without going on those trips, I don't have the necessary material I want for that. But in terms of talking about some recent things, one of the things I really wanted to get done recently was to have a new desk setup. And by new desk setup, I mean completely new desk and how I set that desk up. So there's been big changes. So I've got rid of my old desk. It's still functional. That old desk served me well. When it comes to just having a simple setup, just having stuff on the desk, using a gaming headset for microphone purposes. I wasn't doing any recordings like this. I didn't have a webcam, I didn't have light, I didn't have a boom arm, anything like that. It was just put stuff on the desk, sufficiently wide in length, sufficiently deep as well, and it was stable, didn't wobble, was sturdy and solid despite having the honeycomb cardboard IKEA type desk. It did me well until I started wanting to do more content creation, streaming, recording, you name it, and working with a small space. I think bedroom content creators can attest to this. Space is a premium, and how to use that space is big. So if you're able to maximize your space, that's good. And mounting stuff onto your desk makes great use of that space. But our old desk couldn't do that. I couldn't mount stuff to it. It was closed on 3 sides of the desk, so you couldn't put a monitor stand. I couldn't put mounts for lights up, which meant I had to have stuff more on the desk, which meant setting up was much longer and breaking down was much longer, and that really put a bummer on things. It also meant how I could position the camera in relative to lighting and microphone placement became difficult. I didn't want to show things in the room, not because it was shameful, just because it's not what I wanted on camera. It's not the image, it's not the vision, it's not the aesthetic I wanted, because I was quite proud of trying to make a corner studio. So I've definitely, would say, with this new desk, achieved closer to that. It's not my dream desk setup, but in terms of the type of desk, definitely very close to that. So I've got a sit-stand desk, electric, got it on an amazing deal. It's deeper than my last desk, which is probably what I wanted most in it, and still sufficiently wide. It's 140 by 80 centimeters deep. Now, I should have got a sit-stand desk, even if it was smaller to begin with, because these frames are extendable, and quite frankly, that frame opened up. The frame will open up your desk setup in a big way, because if you look around, you can get these desktops separate. You can use any, like, because you still have to screw it into the frame. They're not toolless. You still have to drill holes when necessary or screw directly into the frame, so you still need to do that. So, and your options open up in a big way. So in terms of being able to set up the desk, it's great. It's resetting up was absolutely a nightmare. That took a while. I think even today, at the day of this recording, I was cleaning up my cable management even more, so it's easier to maintain and service where I need to, such as if I need to pull out the cable and not the cables becoming rustled away from their cable trays. Apologies. And also what I physically have on the desk, and also topic for another video, I would say, because this microphone and new interface is probably more relevant for this channel than it is for my gaming channel, because I want to do more podcasts, and having this setup will aid in that, and I will discuss that in another video because I want to talk about this separately. Now, one thing I'm kicking myself when I was building my desk and rejigging my desk setup, should have recorded it. It would have been great content. I enjoy watching people on YouTube actually either build a new setup or revamp their setup. It's actually a guilty pleasure. I like how people create their space, create the world around them in a macro level, basically, and how they tend to do what they do, whether it's for work, video content creation, photo editing, gaming, streaming, you name it. It's great fun to see that, and how people want to push themselves, elevate themselves in order to accomplish that, because you can better yourself, but I think bettering your surroundings will help in that, and quite frankly, it's fun. But yeah, I didn't record that, and I think this still will allow me to make another video, because I will do like a desktop tour of my desk, how I've set up everything, what I have on here as well, so I can still put something in place. The question is, because this isn't just making YouTube videos, I'm not just talking, this channel though is more orientated for self-development and my career goals, and just development in that for business sense as well. I also have a gaming channel, and I still video game as well, and I still want to elevate that as well, and I want them to coincide. So it's a case of, if I make a setup tour, what channel is it going to go on, or do I emphasize the video to cater to each channel? So I think that's the route I'm going to go. It's going to be a lot more work, can reuse a lot of footage. I don't want to use the exact same video but with a different title. I don't want to do that. I want to emphasize the aspects that will benefit both, because the update I've done to this desk is to benefit both sides. Oh, and sorry, this is as much as, again, I don't want to be super edited. It's not a podcast if it wasn't. I left myself notes just so I can talk about what I wanted to. So back to the desk setup allows me to do additional things that I couldn't do before. So one of them is be able to mount my monitor on a monitor arm. I'm still mixed with it. It's definitely made the portion where it sits clamped cleaner, but it doesn't feel like I've made the whole aspect of monitor arm that you can also move it around. It's not really made that better. Maybe it's a specific arm I've clamped it to. I'll see. I mean, I'm looking to get a different arm anyway, because when just to go over the monitor arm and clamp setup. So I purchased just a column, and the clamp that mounts to the desk, it's a beefy one, really beefy. It actually has 3 clamping points to the one column. It's the column itself is nearly 1 meter high. I think it's 80 centimeters long, and I wanted something beefy just because I don't really like having a small clamp to a desk, because that's just a high pressure point and just makes something easier to break. This is more spread and more stable. So from what I've noticed, the mount itself doesn't wobble, but when a desk wobbles, it will wobble in tune with it. It is what it is. So that's still okay, but it gives me a strong point to mount stuff. I've actually clamped my webcam to the column above the monitor itself. It's also made the space on the base of that column where the clamp is narrower compared to my actual monitor stand that came with it, and that's a nice one actually that I have, so it's actually a shame to get rid of it potentially. I don't know yet, but I've been able to move my light like more centered, and I don't want too many things clamped to the same place. It creates a pressure point. Fingers crossed this desktop is sturdy, but I don't want a high pressure point, because that just means it's the first place it's gonna possibly break. Fingers crossed, touch wood, it doesn't. But yeah, it allows me flexibility. I'm hoping to add shelves and around as well. I found on eBay, I haven't acquired them yet. I'm hoping to do that in the next month or two to get some new shelves that I can put around and just have more places to store stuff, and also have a background behind me, something to put there. And you can see the light behind my TV, and I quite like that. I do want something on this side because it feels a little barren. It's just not well lit. It's just depressing on that side, so I might get something on there, but I haven't decided what yet. So that covers hopefully what I've noted on my desk. Now this podcast episode isn't just to talk about why I've neglected this channel or what I've done recently. There's purpose behind this. So I'm a tech lover, a massive tech lover. My gaming channel is centered around tech as well, and I'm doing more tech reviews on there as well, and I want to do more tech reviews on this channel as well, but emphasizing what benefits, what my goals are for this channel. Same with my gaming channel. I want gear that is used in experience with gaming and how it can enhance content creation within gaming that benefits me and my workflow, and also the just using it in general. Like, I think that's great, and I want to touch on about topics that's not just like a mouse review. I think that's highly subjective. Well, everything's subjective. But with this, I think one of the more prominent things to talk about with content creation and the journey forward is cameras. Cameras is a big one. This is not my first camera. It's not my second either. And gear is a pain. I don't have a gear acquisition syndrome. Like, I need that gear. I look for gear that suits my needs, to make it easier, to make it more reliable, to not have barriers or gates set up. But that's kind of how it's felt with what I've acquired in the past. I think my first actual camera for video content creation was actually a Panasonic G80 or G85. Lovely camera, but that Micro Four Thirds sensor, in terms of field of view, never mind the autofocusing problems it had, that field of view was horrible. wide lenses did not exist for that, so bedroom content creators like myself, yeah, we didn't have much options on that one. The wide lenses cost more than the camera itself. I think year ago, like last year, Panasonic actually released a very wide lens for that system. And if they released that a couple of years ago, and it's actually very affordable, like it's about the same price as this lens, which is a Sigma 16mm on a Fujifilm XS-10. That's about the same going rate. It's bright, and it's still wider than this. And that's kicking me. But because of that field of view, I want to try and move away from it, because it made recording videos very difficult, because I had a field of view of like this. It was just from my chest to just above the top of my head. I didn't like that. Now, it took me a while to realize why my videos looked off and why I kept trying to take multiple takes, was because of that field of view. I hated it, and I tried so hard to try find solutions to it. So I tried to change my camera angle, and I achieved it by having it in a corner of a wall, and I would sit quite far at the end of the desk, but you could see my bed, and I hated that. I wanted a bit of a background that was more of my design, but trying to have that configuration wasn't possible without having this. So I tried to go full frame to resolve that, because full frame cameras from all brands tend to have better access to wider angle lenses. And actually, some of the wide angle lenses was cheaper than the Micro Four Thirds wide angle lens at the time. As weird as that sounds, I don't have an answer for that. But I made the wrong choice of camera. I went with a Canon EOS RP. Good photo camera, video camera, non-existent. I don't care what anyone says, it is a horrible camera for video. Its full frame was not we didn't use a full, all the pixels on that sensor, so it wasn't even downsampling to 1080p, which I could live with. I could live with 1080p. Just downsample that, because it was using, I think, pixel skipping, I think it's called, where it's still a 1080p image, it still used the full sensor, but it would skip pixels, so you would have like noise there, so the image looked horrible. And if you wanted to use a 4K option, it gave you a humongous crop, and the autofocus was worse than a Panasonic. But access to wide angle lenses was actually feasible on that system. Definitely was. But with such a horrible video system, I couldn't do it. I needed to get out of that system, and I was eyeing up Sony cameras, but because I put money into the Canon EOS RP, it took virtually all the budget that would have gone into, say, a Sony A3 an A7 Mark III, sorry. That should have only gone for, it didn't have a flippy screen, but I think it would have been sufficient. And I'm kicking myself that wasn't a route I went, and I really, really should have. But that was out of my budget, but I needed a new camera in order to make myself happy with what I was creating. And I want to still go Sony with the APS-Cs, but they had stock issues. So I looked to Fujifilm. I've had a Fujifilm camera before. I had an XT20, was it an XT20? Yes. Good for videos, good for photos, meh for videos. has a really horrible record limit. And this is kind of where Fujifilm weaknesses is. I don't see myself staying Fujifilm. In fact, I'm still looking to see when I can sell this whole system and go Sony, because I do not like this. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the camera industry. The camera industry is in a horrible state and position. Wow. Where do I begin? So many camera brands can put out a new camera, and they're just full of issues on reviews. They're just so crippled in features. I mean, we're talking, even cameras from like 5 odd years ago that were still have features. Essentially, there's too many crippling features on a lot of camera systems these days, and it makes choosing a system difficult, because you're not trying to pick the best image quality. You're trying to pick something that isn't that crippled. So I don't need 8K. I would love to have 8K recording, but where's the usable features? So to go over, so with Fujifilm, it has two big problems. One of them is the record limit. Most of the Fujifilm cameras have a 30-minute limit, and when you just want to record, and even if you're trying to do several takes within that video, you kind of just want to leave it on and you just cut out what you need after. You don't want to keep press and play recording. It's just annoying, especially when I can do a photo or record manually, with my phone, and just do it remotely. Much nicer experience. But 30-minute record limit is horrible. Some of the brands do this as well. The Panasonic G80 did that. I believe even the GH5 might have had that. I might be wrong. But the later cameras were fine. I believe they don't have limits. But this does. And it means, not every video is going to be 30 minutes. You don't need to take 30 minutes to create each take or video. But when you're just letting the camera run and you are doing your takes, you kind of have to be mindful of the timer, because to my experience with cameras with record limit, the Canon EOS RP also had that 30-minute limit as well. When these cameras reach that 30-minute, it doesn't save your recording, it loses it. Why? Save it! Because it means you're constantly looking at that timer, because I have my phone also set up to monitor the 30 minutes as an easy way of doing that. I need a drink. Don't have any fancy drinks. Ooh, kind of spat there. Hopefully not on the mic. I don't have any fancy drinks that a lot of podcasters use, but that's for another podcast in the future. So to me that's a crippling feature, because it also means when I want to do simultaneous recording into the camera and a stream out to my capture card, when I'm doing streams, just see if there's a knock on the door. So yeah, if I'm doing a streaming but I want to record the footage on my camera, can't do it actually, because though I can record unlimited to my capture card, that will do 30 minutes, and it's just that jarring experience. Another big problem with the Fujifilm system is the lack of lenses. They've opened up the mount not that long ago, I think 2020. So like I said, I've got a Sigma 60mm 1.4 that's famous throughout the APS-C whatever cameras. Really good. It's the go-to lens. It is equivalent to 24mm at a full frame, so a nice wide lens, but I still would like wider, because wider lenses gives you options, gives you more setup options. It gives you, when you're a bedroom content creator, it works. But the thing that's preventing me going to the ecosystem is the very expensive lenses. There's not that many of them for their telephoto zooms. They're getting there, but they cost more than a camera. So that's one problem, but I would say lens expense and availability is true for most brands of cameras, except for Sony. Another big problem with Fujifilm is when you want to do internal recording. Now, I actually have an interesting setup here with how I'm getting my audio into the camera. So I am actually, the audio coming from this microphone is going directly into the camera. This is going into this is an XLR microphone that's going into an audio interface, and I have an audio out for the monitoring going to the mic into the camera, and I've switched on monitoring. But this interface is a little bit more special. This has DSP, which can be applied to the audio out. So what I apply as a setting to that interface will actually go into the camera. So I actually don't need to do that post-production, and I only need to do minor things here and there. But I can just have that and not have other type of microphones, because before I... Should I finish that sentence? Yes, I'll finish that sentence. It means when I want to use microphones, I don't want to use those on top shotgun mics, as they're called, because they're awful. It makes everything sound echoey. It's horrible. And also, you really want to be close to the microphone as much as possible. So trying to boom these microphones is another setup process, and they're not fun, because you do have to put them away and break it down and put it back each single time. For a microphone that doesn't sound that amazing. Those class anyway. I also have the Rode Wireless Go, which depending on the video I make, will be used. I think for these podcast videos, because they're very long form, that's not suitable. The reason being, they have a couple of hours battery life per charge. I don't intend to run that battery through in a single session, but when you're having to frequently keep charging it, it doesn't become fun. So this is a nice way to get very high quality audio without needing to switch on my main computer, because it'll operate without it, like this. So I'm making a video on that. I'm making a video on this whole audio package and why it works with this. So that's something I've been enjoying lately. But Fujifilm preamps, really bad. One of the worst ones in the camera mirrorless market. I think the only thing that is worse than it... No, but it's not horrible that it couldn't be used. I mean, people do actually use these and they sound fine. It's just you need to really, you need to crank the preamp to its lowest on Fujifilm, and then apply the gain for the microphone you're using post-production, or in my case, I can just crank the volume out and it's clean. But this is the cleanest way I can get the audio into this, because there is an ever so slight hiss even when I'm using the Rode Wireless Go. Sadly, this is true with any like onboard microphone that I've noticed, because they have their own inherent noise and they're going to be louder than this, sadly. I believe Sony and Panasonic have the best preamps. I think my experience was a Panasonic G80. That was clean, despite how quite loud that was, but that was the cleanest one I've owned, because I don't have a Sony camera. A Sony should be good because they make professional audio equipment, but Sony is like the worst company on the planet when it comes to internal cohesion of their departments. Guys, Sony does a lot of stuff. They make professional microphones, and I'm not talking about their wireless stuff for their cameras. They make professional audio equipment. They have like £1,000, $1,000 plus microphones. They do exist. They have incredible professional speaker setups. They have amazing soundbars. They have amazing tech when it comes to televisions. And they do amazing cameras. They do amazing headphones. They do amazing smartphones. But are they any good at putting it all together? Nope. Not at all. They seem to be at odds end with each other when it comes to their internal departments. Don't know why. But Sony preamps I've looked into good, and when I've seen people predominantly using Sony cameras to do their vlogs, video content creation, it's clean. One thing it does do great is that you can power the camera by putting in a USB power delivery into it, and it will just run. So that's great. I think a lot of modern cameras, modern releases in the last 3 or so years, all have this feature, or most of them do. I'm suspecting Canon doesn't, because they like to cripple their stuff. My old Panasonic didn't have that. You had to use a dummy battery for long recordings. The Canon RP, same thing as well. And if you wanted to record out of HDMI out of that, like if you wanted to stream or have it through a capture card, you have to enable a setting to have a clean HDMI feed, and you have to turn it off if you wanted to not use it via HDMI. It was a terrible system. This is what I mean. So many camera brands have crippling features. Canon cripple their video features immensely. The video bit rates, the video availabilities are only in their very expensive camera lineups. Guys, you had the Canon RP, then the Canon EOS R. There was almost £1,000 difference between those two systems. And the biggest video difference they had between those two cameras was higher bitrate on the EOS R, and if you did switch to 4K, you still had a crop, but the autofocus still functioned. And I think with the modern cameras, they're actually, they seem to be better in that regard. But the rising prices of everything is happening with all the brands. Fujifilm released a new version to this XS-10, with it being the XS-20. Costs more. Loads more. They've released certain new lenses. I think they released a 9mm lens, but it's not bright, and they're charging nearly $1,000 for that. It's like $800, $900. I went, come on guys, you've got a wide lens, be it bright, and it's not for the background blur, it's just so you don't have to crank up your lights or crank up the ISO. Just don't do it, please. Again, with the Canon crippling as well, Nikon, I think, is releasing cameras that don't have, they can have good preamps, unlimited recording, but depending what cameras release, they just take away a feature. And I think it's is it the Nikon FC? Something like that. It's the most recent APS-C camera they do. Like the Nikon 30, I forgot the full name of it. Great video camera from the reviews, but it's 20 megapixels, so if you want to take photos with it, it'll still do very well. It's just, that's not great for photos. So it's almost like telling you that if you want good photos as well, get that other camera for photos. So crippling is a big thing because it makes you look into either buying the more expensive variations of those camera lines or get two cameras. So I mean, they're in the industry to make money, businesses, but it's not very consumer friendly. I think Panasonic has created possibly the best-ish camera with their what's it called? The S5 Mark II and the 2X as well. They're still expensive cameras, but in terms of value, because you can get them on sale, I've seen retailers already discounting them by £300, throwing in that 50mm lens on top of that kit lens as well, a limited recording, great preamps. With the Mark IIX, I've seen reviews where people put an SSD direct to the USB, which is great. That camera should have had 2 USB ports, because I've yet to see anyone put a USB-C hub into it and apply power to it so it receives power for unlimited recording, so you don't need a dummy battery, and have an SSD from that as well. I'm hoping someone does that. I don't have the budget for that anytime soon. But the big thing that camera lacks is lens availability, and more importantly, like value lenses, like actual cheap lens options. They're very expensive. It's cost prohibitive. Like if I want a wide enough but bright lens, it's even if I could buy the camera kit with the kit lens, I couldn't afford those wide bright lenses unless Panasonic or some retailer was doing some sort of special offer, but even then that's still too expensive. But I don't want to be stuck in a jarring ecosystem. This is a big problem. Canon lenses are expensive. They've got some budget offerings, but they're generally not great, even for video. Fujifilm, I've explained. Nikon is doing a better job at the moment, but I think in order to make, like, I want, when I'm, like I said, when I want gear, it needs to fulfill features that make it easy for me to create content and not have barriers. Whether it's features, it's also cost. Sony cameras have an amazing array of lenses which go down quite cheap. You can get this same lens for it as well, but they even have a wider lens as well. Costs a bit more, but you have the option and it's relatively bright and it will work. Even their zoom lenses, you know, they may not be the best in the world, but they're affordable and the reviews look like they're actually decent. You have upgrade paths because you can mix those lenses between the full frame cameras and their APS-Cs, which is great. So reusability, so you don't lose out and you have that stepping stone as well. Great preamps. Those batteries that, like, guys, camera batteries, official camera batteries. The Sony Z battery is cheaper than the other vendors for what it gives. Probably the best battery life of any camera battery out there, and it's cheaper than Canon's. Not to mention you can buy the third-party battery. and they're completely compatible. Don't argue, Sony's completely opened up their systems way more than anyone else, and trying to accessorize, buying the useful things for that ecosystem, great. Though I don't have personal experience, just looking around shopping wise, where you want to build a nice system to elevate your content, have less barriers in the way. That's what I want. I don't want barriers in a multifaceted way. Come on guys, give us what we need. I think that's where I end this rant. These podcasts are meant to be long. They're long videos. Just stick with me for the ride. And if you made it this far, or if you skipped the video this far, cheers for the video. Cheers for tuning in. And until next time, guys. See ya.